the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him, so he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me they can write books, with nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier. So let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country.
Yo, I just had to pause that for a second because, like, listen to this dude talk. It's like a fire hydrant being like you want a sip of water and it's like, dude, you're just all over the place. Calm down. Are you on fucking Ritalin or something? Just calm down.
Yo, what up, y'all? What's good? I don't want to say too much. I just want to get back to the theatrics.
All right.
By what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in. And all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. but those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently...
Marcus, hold on.
Yeah.
Just wanted to say, one thing, they actually both made some valid points. One, I mean, surprisingly, it was funny what she said, how she just read his whole shit. Ironically, while it's funny, it is a witch hunt too. So it's the humor is on both sides of this, right? Also, I'm gonna check them crime stats of Venezuela, but yeah, we can hit play.
Well, that's the thing. I'm like, do you have documentation where you can cite that it says if you come back, you'll be murdered? I'm like, where are you getting this stuff from? I know you're not talking to nobody in Venezuela who's in the government who's telling you that. So why are you just like making up shit?
It also speaks to the age of his base too, of his base voter, not necessarily his base online Twitter warrior. Like, I'm talking about the base old voter who's gonna donate bread. Everybody works with people like that. So with that being said, they'll be scared of hearing Venezuela. Venezuela. I mean, how many times you gonna keep saying that shit? The problem with him, he's overexposed. Kind of like just too much all the time. And if you pay any attention to him outside of events like these, you hear this. This is similar to what he says all the time. It's almost verbatim. It's committed to memory at this point. He's not even slick enough to be able to quickly deviate and add some things or take some things out of it. It'd be slick with it. You know what I mean? He needs a slow pitch right over the middle of the plate to be able to hit it. And unfortunately, he's giving those right back to Kamala as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell like a lot of his information is being deep within the right-wing bubbles. There's a lot of stuff that's being put out that they're such in a rush to confirm some kind of narrative, but then it comes out that what they're talking about is not the entire story, or it's incorrect, or there's but they're in a rush.
Or they just rush to the straight extreme point. Like, what did he just say right before we came on? They're eating dogs and cats and pet. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's been completely debunked by the people who were the county managers. Like, no, we have received no reports of that. What are you talking about?
And it just, they always go to the most extreme example as if that is what is happening, like, on the regular. So they actually do themselves a disservice by doing that. You know what I mean? But
yes,
yeah, I'm done. We can get back to it.
Ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy
President
with a fake
Trump,
Russia investigation
we do have a lot to
that
get.
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking.
This is
Now
why you
don't.
didn't need to
You
lie
wanted
about him
mandatory
from the
government
start.
buyback programs for assault weapons.
This
Now
is
your
why
campaign
he's
says you
able
don't.
to
You
speak
supported
the way he
decriminalizing border
does.
crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of at least every point that you've
Okay,
made. But in
here we
particular, let's
go.
talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases
I'm the
for
fracker
fracking.
bitch.
My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about
It's a headache to me how they're allowing them to like each one of them both are just topic after topic after topic after topic without letting any kind of actually dialogue be put in there or able to really fact check or go after anything. She just went through like 5 different topics. And when she was asked one question about one thing, she was asked about fracking. Now she's talking about a friend who was sexually abused. Like, what the hell is going on here from both of them? I mean, I've never thought that I would see a point where you got the Republican and the Democrat fighting over who's going to get the fracking and drill baby drill.
protecting social
You know,
security
it always
and
happens
Medicare.
like that too. You know, the other side gets to the other side does what the other one can't. And you know, sometimes.
Is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well,
response?
first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now,
On the police.
if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
She was never for defund the police. We're going to leave.
She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns.
No,
She
how
will
you
never
can't
allow
laugh
When did
fracking
you
in
follow
Pennsylvania.
it?
If she won the election,
come
fracking
on.
in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing so important, in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately
Okay,
let
so
these
be a
guys
meme.
go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead. Fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400,
President
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment,
to.
as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her.
Yo, you got Trump
It's a
calling the
disgrace.
cops out of control.
But we didn't do
Yo,
this
come on,
group of
son.
people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? What are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But
But when are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
you. You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching
Dog,
it unfold on television.
he's like a Gatling gun,
as we
dog.
move forward toward another election. Is there anything you
don't
regret
stop him,
about what
keep
you
going,
did on
dog.
that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi. But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th.
I was
I
scared.
was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on
was
that
scared.
day, the
The
president
fear.
of the United States
my
incited a
God.
violent mob to
They
attack
were coming for me.
our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate.
Joe Biden
And
has
what
to put
did
that one in there.
the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because.
Hold on. Did he just say go down to Washington, D.C. for her to sign a bill during the debate? How can she sign a bill? She's not the president.
Exactly. That's
What
what
is
he's
this
just
dude talking about? And how are you going? Wait, you Philly? Was she going to travel a couple of hours while he just sits there on stage waiting for her to come back? Like, what is this dude talking about, man? Come on.
Yo, and he missed an opportunity to say, well, why did the police let people into the building? You know, like why were they given the guided tours? He missed that part too. But anyway, go ahead.
They have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Right. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying.
This is how you know that you're an idiot. When you say, well, they told me if I got this many votes, nobody could beat me. 63 million, we're a country over 300 something million people. If the eligible amount of people who could vote did vote, the numbers would be far higher than that. So if whoever is giving him this advice to tell him, oh, if you get this amount, then you're good to go. was an idiot and a liar right there. And for you to buy into, well, they told me I got this much, so that's and then you're going to say, oh, well, you know that I was being basically tongue in cheek. No, we don't know that. We know one thing about you is you tend to be a liar. So why would anybody just take your word on anything?
Trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them.
No judge.
Also, I would just say produce evidence of undocumented people at the polls voting. And then you could just shut all that down, because I've not seen one single news story showing undocumented people voting. Not saying that it's not happening, but you need to show it.
I haven't either, but how true is it that they're giving people, that they're registering these people upon obtaining a driver's license? I mean, that we would have to check.
Well, my thing is, if they're the ones who are claiming it, and Republicans always complain that there's some kind of fraud going on with the elections.
Yeah,
I mean, both parties do to a degree. If you're the party who's saying that that's what's happened, and then go out there and just prove it. And the fact that you're not going out there, either you haven't went out there to prove it, or you have been looking for it and you haven't found it. What does that say right there? I mean, it shouldn't be a hard thing to find if that's what you're saying that's happening. Because when they allow felons to vote again in the state of Florida, which they were legally able to vote, DeSantis went around and locked a whole bunch of them up because he's saying that they didn't pay fines. That he didn't at some point.
Well,
so
he didn't lock.
You can't.
He didn't lock them. He didn't lock them up. He just told them that they wouldn't be able to register to vote until they paid.
He did go around and arrest a whole bunch of people. He did go down. They had to let them go.
Oh yeah, there was There was like I remember probably 2, maybe 3 people, I think, who got arrested. I don't know if it was like dozens or anything like that, or hundreds.
No, it wasn't hundreds. It was probably like 10 people max.
Yeah, but even beyond, besides that, the larger group he affected was those who had to pay back those fees and fines and whatever they had outstanding, even though they're finished with their time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if they were able to find those people and actually say, oh, well, we know that allegedly you voted illegally, and then stop these people and then send police officers out there, why isn't there all this news coverage of all these undocumented people who you have found who are voting illegally? And part of it, to me, when I hear like some of these people like Trump, it's like, your side will be fully invested in trying to prove that. The fact that you haven't seen that from your own side should be telling, but maybe he knows he's bullshitting and doesn't care.
Looked at it
and said
they said we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter, because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, "We won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote." Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly, he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as vice president of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you.
You saying this as the vice president to Joe Biden.
And when you
Granted,
then
they might be
talk
laughing
in
at
this
Trump,
way
but you
in a
really said
presidential
that
debate and
with Joe
deny
Biden as your
what
boss.
over and over again
Oh,
are
man.
court cases you
That's
have
what both of them,
lost
honestly.
because you
They
did
thought
in
this was
fact
going to
lose
hit,
that
and it
election.
didn't. Not when Joe
It
Biden
leads
is
one to
standing up.
believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1
So
minute to
you-
respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look,
That was already
Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But
Mr.
he
President.
got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm
President,
okay with it
Mr.
because
President, your time
I
is up.
think we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters
here we
how,
go.
saying international
They're going to both
humanitarian
put
law
on the
must be
bid.
respected. Israel
They're going to
must be
show
able to
each other
protect
who has
innocent
the
civilians.
nicest set of knee
You said
pads
that
right
9
now.
months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime
Unequivocally
Minister Benjamin
stand
Netanyahu
with
said
Israel.
there's not
Trump.
a deal in the
Israel
making.
used to be
President
strong.
Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well,
Well,
let's understand how we got here. On October 7th,
October 7th,
Hamas,
is a terrorist attack.
terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis, many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly
go.
raped.
They
And so
prepped her.
absolutely, I said then, I say
You
now,
got this part
Israel
down.
has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters, because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately. And the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that
Here we go.
solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and
Here we
in
go.
equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its
There we
proxy
go.
pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza,
Here
where the
we go.
Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly
So,
deserve.
Trump
President
just says
Trump,
kill them
how would
all.
you
That's the only
negotiate
other
with
place for him to go.
Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing
You
of
got to
more
let them
innocent
do the
civilians
job.
in Gaza?
Got to
If I
let
were
them finish.
president, it would have
Gotta
never
finish the
started.
job.
If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with
See?
Netanyahu when he
Here we
went to
go.
Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates
You
Israel.
just sat
At
there
the
and
same
listened to
time,
her
in her
suck
own
them
way,
off, and then
she
you say
hates the
this.
Arab population because the whole place is
Well,
going to
that
get
part.
blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone.
Well, she hates them
It
both.
would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different
No matter Israel.
spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror.
Fears
They had
of
no
terror.
money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a
He knew
rich
their
nation,
budget.
and
He said they ain't
now
have a
what they're
terror
doing
budget.
is they're spreading that money around.
Or something terror.
Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll
Yemen.
get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire
I had to stop it for a
I've
second.
opened up my body to the state of Israel. I've given them everything. Please press play, Marcus, so we can finish.
Yeah, I just gotta say this part real quick. You can't in one breath say she hates Israel and she's basically helping the Arabs, but she hates the Arabs, so she's trying to get them both when they've literally given Israel basically everything they want and have done nothing but run cover for Israel. So how can you in one their actions are speaking a lot louder than any words which you're trying to put on them. Both of you guys, and then how can you also if I would have been the president, it wouldn't have happened. You have no control over what happens in Israel, Palestine. You have no control over what happens over there either.
Matter of fact, they tell you what to do. You know, you are an Adelson baby, and there's no way you're gonna stop that money train. So, I mean, let's just be honest. As we talked about here before, you know, her husband is on the trail like, oh yeah, y'all don't worry about that. She really pro-Israel. Don't even trip. You know what I mean?
And then I was going to say, then throw in the fact of what were you going to do to Russia? What are you going to do? They've already thrown every type of sanction that they can think of throwing at them, and it's doing nothing. What can you do? Well, you're going to talk tougher to him, and he's going to just tremble in his boots because of what?
And he said it wrong. It's not that Russia would have done anything. Ukraine would have chilled.
No, because the State Department, the people who really control things, not this clown or not this wannabe clown here, they wanted this. They wanted Russia, Ukraine to happen. And so...
Yeah, that's what I mean. So you had to wait until he was out the way.
Wait until who was out of the way?
The guy on the screen right now.
No, they ain't got to wait on him.
They did. They didn't start until after he was out, though. That's a fact.
Yeah, I'll say they didn't start until then, but they don't have to wait.
They had minor things, but it was not the same level or, you know, that it was after he was gone.
And shout out to Around the World with D and Friends and Midnight Karma also. Glad to see you guys.
So guys.
Let's start it back.
entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that he's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
And she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it.
I think
because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way, gets paid a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back
up. To try to say it's to the level of 20, 30 million that have come in the last few years.
The ABC News presidential debate will continue after this.
You should just mute the thing for the commercial.
19-year-old.
I'm like, when I hear them say stuff like this, I'm like, do you know what 20 to 30 million people looks like? I mean, you would be able to count the numbers. Now, granted, you're seeing in New York, you're seeing tens of thousands. You're seeing Chicago, tens of thousands. You're seeing in various different major cities, tens of thousands. You could easily make an argument for maybe 1 million, maybe 2 million that's come in. But really, you're really thinking like 3 years, like 30 million undocumented people from all over the world. And all these countries are just emptying out their mental asylums and the prisons and telling them if they come back, they're going to kill them. I mean, some of these right-wing circles, which he just grabs whatever's being said as the topic of conversation and never fact checks anything that's being said, is exhausting listening to this dude say this stuff.
Yeah, and I would just touch on the little minor foreign policy question they just had. There's almost virtually there's no reason to even bring that country up, none whatsoever. The only thing they're going to do is that's the only competition we'll see, is to see who could say the best thing about them, improve, who will break an arm or a leg, or who will cut the biggest check, or who will send the biggest bombs or the biggest military order. That's all the conversation ever is.
No, I mean, I actually did agree with Trump when he decided to talk to Kim Jong-un. I think that you don't get anywhere by saying, oh, we don't talk to these people. I mean, what is this, Mean Girls or something? These other countries are not supposed to be necessarily your buddies or friends. You try to deal with peace by trying to talk about things. And if you don't talk about things, you only have one other way to go. Sanctions, or which are a form of war, or actual war. So if you don't try to talk about things and you don't de-escalate things, now you take millions of people on both sides of whichever nation and you put them in harm's way because of your ego and your pettiness.
Yeah, or they could just mind their business and pay them no mind as long as they're not doing anything crazy. And even if they do, let the neighbors take care of it. It's not your business.
Yeah, I mean, well, the reason why they need to talk about it is because we're deciding that we're going to throw sanctions on these countries.
Mm.
And so if we're not throwing sanctions on the countries, and I agree, then yeah, never mind, whatever they're doing is what they're doing over there. But we have sanctions on North Korea. We have sanctions on Venezuela. We have sanctions on, I mean,
Chinese citizens.
we got sanctions on like half of the world right now. So when you look at like the sanctions list of how many countries that we have under sanctions at this current time, and a lot of people don't think about like the crazy amount of the different sanctions we have on all these countries. I mean, we got sanctions on countries which, I mean, I was even shocked when I went down the list. It's like, why do we have sanctions on Vietnam? What the hell did Vietnam do to us? I mean,
It just seems another way, some form of taxation or a way to make the black market thrive.
Yeah. And I mean, you'll have Trump in one breath. And then this is a problem I've had with a lot of people who are like very hardcore immigration hawks. Then why don't we stop meddling in these countries? How about we take our hand out of their countries, stop trying to sanction this, stop trying to mess with whatever oil deals that they're trying to put into place, and leave them alone. And I guarantee you, most of the people who are coming to this country would far rather be able to live in their own country if there were economic resources and there were actual, like, there was a positive economy.
It's actually better without people there.
Oh shoot! What the hell just happened? No.
Damn, dog.
Oh, there you go. Come on.
Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're gonna have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're gonna have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in?
He should just leave this alone. If he was smart, he would just leave it alone.
I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
That's it.
But those were
That's
your
it.
words. So
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black.
Stop.
That she put out.
Stop.
And I'll say
Stop.
that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's
Stop,
up to her.
dog. You see, that's where you fucking up the church's
He's
money.
doing all right.
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president
that's a
who
mistake.
has
Don't check your phone.
consistently over the course of his career
It makes it look like you're bored.
attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want
But at the same time,
this
she ain't
kind
be
of
like, yo,
approach
you
that
ain't
is just
like, you
constantly
better
trying
watch how
to
you talk
divide
to a
us, and
black woman,
especially by
right? That would have
race.
been
And let's
far more
remember
effective. But
or
how
she
Donald Trump
sidestepped
started.
this
He
too.
was a
yeah, she's sidestepping it too to try to make
land.
herself
He
seem
owned
above it.
land. He
But
owned
she's a fool
buildings,
too.
and he was investigated
She,
because
one thing she
he
don't want to
refused
lie
to
about
rent
on some level.
property to Black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times
Get him on.
calling for the execution
Get him.
of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first Black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend, we see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want
We
a
should move
president
on to the
who
next
invests in
topic.
those, not in
Just
hate and
concede this
division.
point and move on.
Thank you. Lindsay?
President
Concede
Trump,
the
this is now
point and
your
move
third
on.
time.
Look,
I honestly felt
This
she
is
could
the
get
most
better if she would have
divisive
said, "We got
presidency
better things to talk about than
in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled
forced
guilty, they
possession.
badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up.
I
Lindsay.
want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan
Did she really
to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name calling. Let's turn the page.
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
She
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's
Mr.
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump-
the
President
former
Trump-
president has said
No, I'm
something
sorry.
twice.
No,
that I need to respond to.
I'm sorry.
I
We're
just
going
need
to
to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
third time running for president.
Didn't
You
he
have
talk
long
about,
vowed
like,
to
defunding
repeal
the
and
FBI?
replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was.
Forget
It's
about
not
that.
very
You
good
said
today.
you had a plan. What's your
And
plan?
what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up, they wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though
rot.
politically it would have been good to just let it rot
It's
and
not
let it
just
go
you to let
away.
it rot. Either
I
you get
decided,
rid of
and I
it,
told my people,
either
the
it's
top
your
people, and
plan,
they're very good
claim
people. I have a
to
lot
it.
of good people in this
and you were running, you
administration.
had this super
We
secret
read about
plan.
the bad ones. We had some
Never
real
ever
bad ones
voted
too,
anybody.
and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just
I mean,
explain.
he said that on
I
every.
had a choice
If
to
I
make.
get in
Do I
office,
save it
I have
and
a
make it as
plan,
good as it can
but he
be,
never
or do I let it rot?
plans.
And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive
Oh,
for
okay.
people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost.
Okay, then I'll stop it. Yeah, Chris said my voice is going in and out on that. But this is what I want to say. This dude said when he was running, like 9 years ago, like she said, I have a plan. You don't have a plan. If you had a plan, you would have showed us it fucking long time ago. You keep saying, if I get elected, and you always say, if I get elected, I'm going to do X. And he basically uses this for every damn topic. If I get elected, I'm going to do this, but you never do it. You have never produced what your healthcare plan is going to be, or even it's one thing if they vote it down. It's another thing that you have never produced it. You have never shown it. So stop with the lying. I wish that's what he would be called on. You know you don't have a plan. Stop fucking lying.
Our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can
Oh, yeah, not that I'm caping for Obamacare. Just want to put that out there.
be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan.
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
Vice
Past his
President
prologue
Harris,
in
thank
terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue
Well,
that's important for a
She
lot
made a
of
mistake. At number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get.
President
People
Trump.
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse.
I just had to say this real quick. He gonna put tariffs on what cars? Can anybody even name a Chinese car? Can anybody even name a Chinese car manufacturer? What Chinese cars are coming over here?
I think that he's referring to the cars that may be at least put together in Mexico, manufactured in Mexico.
Well, we'll see.
You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it between him and his son. They get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Oh, boy. Says Honda sounds Chinese. Funny. So
Yeah, I was just looking at it. I put this article in the chat too. So it looked like they do have a considerable investment in vehicles. I'll put it in here, Marcus, so you could get it and look at it.
Says China's auto sector is moving to Mexico.
Yeah, so they're saying 29 new plants set up since June of 2022.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's in Mexico.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I think I'm just saying that's in response to the tariffs. And they got that new electric vehicle plant too down there, I believe. I believe there was a story about that from earlier in the year. I just don't remember the name of the company. I think it got some initials. Okay, Chris says, yeah, BYD. That's it. That's it. That's why they're using Mexico as a staging ground for their production and manufacturing. So they're going to try to build it in Mexico, ship it here in the U.S. But I mean, it just seems like the United States is so scared.
But what?
Like scared of everything.
But what cars are they building in Mexico to ship here?
Whatever brand they building. Oh, let me see if it
I
says
still
here.
have not seen these cars in the United States.
Ooh. They're probably working on that because they got 2 years with all the plants, so they're probably working on that shit. I wouldn't be surprised if it's soon to come. Yeah, I think even in the Reuters article, they quoting Tesla is saying like, "Yo, Doug, we gotta stop them."
Well, I look at it
even if it's not here, they still have the rest of the hemisphere to market and sell these things to. So even if it's not right now at this moment, it'll soon be here.
But even if they do market it throughout the rest of the hemisphere, that's not the United States' concern. If they want to ship cars to Honduras, then that's none of the United States' business.
It shouldn't be, but they want to maintain their position in the world on everything. And when you have private when business interests align, or when business interests align with government interests, we know what happens. They do whatever they need to do to stop it.
Because here's another thing, and I don't think I think because they didn't do it yet, China still owns a large percentage of American debt. The moment that we start playing, and I believe that Trump, if he does get back in office, he wants to do this. He starts going on the whole tariffs thing. They could very easily start calling in our debt, and could start making for a very a tense situation. So there's not as much leverage as somebody like Trump likes to pretend, or any of these people who talk about slapping tariffs on China. Also, the fact of, if they decide, okay, so that's how it is, that's what you guys want to do, we will bring Bolivia into BRICS and put people on the ground, and then we'll completely flush out any kind of you guys getting in there for any of the rare earth materials which you guys are going to need for the batteries, and we'll make sure to go on ahead and lock it down over there in Taiwan. And so, without the superconductors, then what?
Yeah, this is true, but I think at this point they've
Tonight,
invested so
two
much money
very
that
different
that
visions
I
for
don't
our
think
country.
anything is going to stop them.
One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
All right.
Yeah, so, you know, one, it wasn't that, I thought it was going to be a little more entertaining, but it was okay. Neither, you know, they both lied through they both lied through their teeth, and, you know, it's all about who's going to get more of their lies believed. I will say again, regardless, however you feel about the immigration or migrant issue, it's going to be the bigger. It's immigration versus abortion. That's essentially what the battle lines are for this particular election. It's going to sway. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of people who hate the other and they're going to want to vote for their candidate anyway. I'm not really talking about those people. I'm just talking about the few people in a few states who, depending on how they feel about either of those issues, could go one of the other ways.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment that it's going to go down to those two issues, and abortion, I think, is going to be very prominent because there are a bunch of states, or even a couple of swing states, which have abortion on the ballot. So that is going to make a difference. But there is a lot of eyes on the immigration debate right now. So it's just a matter of how prominent it is within those swing states is what's going to matter. I was looking at some of the polling right before. If you look at the nationwide polls, Kamala is polling slightly ahead at, was it 47% to 45%? But if you look at the 7 swing state polls, the margin, I think there's one state where Kamala is up like 4%, which is right outside the margin of error, which is about 3% typically. But the other 6 states is literally like less than 1%. So, I mean, this is way closer in the polls than it typically is. Now, Trump typically runs the way the pollers do things. They typically don't count as many Trump voters, so it could be an edge towards Trump. But at the same time, you do have a lot of you do have a lot of Black women voters who, I mean, she's like, I think they said something ridiculous, like 127% higher as far as Black women voters. So I think that there's going to be a good contingent of her voters which are not counted. So it's a matter of whose voters are not being factored in nearly as much. I don't think there's going to be any kind of major thing that either one of them are doing that's going to swing people too much. I think that Kamala, she actually had a whole lot to lose in this debate, and I think she held her own perfectly fine. And I think that Trump showed more composure than he typically would, especially if you go back to that debate with him and Hillary. That said, from both of the candidates, I felt like it was trying to drink water out of a fire hose instead of a faucet. Both of them just loaded up on so many different topics back to back to back to back without elaborating on anything, that I think without clips, it's going to be hard for a lot of people to recount much of what was said in here. Now,
well, none of them said, again, anything relevant or anything that they haven't said before. So, I mean, the debate really didn't. They went on there, and because of the format, because of the lack of a crowd, they were really just pretty much able to take their talking points and chop them up and then just use them as each question came up.
Exactly.
So it was like having index cards, like, oh, what's the topic? Oh, immigration. Let me just pull these cards out. And then now, okay, these are my answers for this topic. So both of them, and Trump was, maybe he's showing his age or so, but he wasn't able to be as sharp, quick on his feet as he normally is. he kept belaboring the immigration point. We got it the first time, we got it the second time, the third. By the time that end point came, it was just like, damn, bro, hurry up. You're repeating yourself for the umpteenth time in this particular setting. So I understand that you have to belabor the point in politics. You know, the more times you repeat it, the more effective it is. But he could have done a much better job articulating that, or even just pivoting to other answers, you know, or to other topics. He just, you know, he's Trump. He doesn't have the ability to do that. And did Kamala meet with Putin? Oh yeah, I don't think she ever did.
Mm-mm.
No.
No, another thing is he said that, oh, well, she didn't meet with Netanyahu because she was off.
Well, he did confirm that, Chris.
Well, she actually did meet with Netanyahu like right after that meeting. So to try to play this, oh, well, she didn't meet with Netanyahu, she's soft on Israel. I think they know either way that the Zionists are going to get whatever they need out of both of these candidates. So it's kind of ridiculous.
What's up, man? Oh, it's without a doubt, man. The both candidates are, you know what this showed? They're not that much different. They're not that much different. They're actually a lot closer on most things than either would have you believe.
Oh,
even
yeah.
on abortion, I would say they're a lot closer than they would have people believe. Trump is not one of those anti-abortion nutcases out there who wants to make your personal decisions his business, not in this particular area, to the extent that he will verbally speak on it in such a way that makes it seem as if he is, quote, pro-life. I mean, you just have to examine the lifestyle of a man like that and those of the men in his circle. Of course, those men believe in abortions. You see the lifestyle they live. You see the amount of women and, women that they surround themselves with. Of course, they would want access to abortions, Plan B pills, and anything else, any other preventative thing. Doesn't even have to be, just the abortion part. Men of his ilk are completely fine with everything being available to all of the women they deal with.
Yeah, another thing that I wanted to bring up, he talked about how they basically let them build Nord Stream 2. And it's like, what are you talking about? That pipeline has been up for quite some time, and that didn't just get built in like the last 3 years. Now, Biden alluded to it being destroyed under him, and I don't know if he wanted to give credit to Biden for destroying it because he felt like, I guess, it was a problem. Okay, but and I would agree with you when you talked about on the abortion. They're not really that different. The only thing that I say is Trump is going to rubber stamp whatever he needs to for his supporters. So if the bill comes up, he's not going to shoot it down for whatever abortion stuff that they want necessarily. But
I don't think he would sign a ban. No, he wouldn't sign a ban. No. His sons are probably like, there like, yo, son, you can't do that. Chill.
Well, you got to remember, rich people, they'll make laws for them. I mean, they'll make laws for other people. And
yeah, of course.
So I'll fly the woman out of the country and get it done.
Yeah, that's cool. But they still, they still going to want, at the end of the day, they're still going to want the lower half of society, as they would put it, to have access to abortions. That's why they exist in the first place, right? Isn't that one of the things that the lady who started Planned Parenthood said?
Margaret Sanger.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
it is part of the program. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I feel like you got one group that is pushing for Planned Parenthood and things like that, and reproductive rights and all that stuff. But you also do got the other ones who are like, I think we got too many people here, and we we need to limit this. But then you have the other group who were like, well, I think we got, I think that our numbers in certain particular demographics are dropping, and we need to increase that. So, I mean, it's first time I've heard Trump talk about that. He's always been pro IVF. I mean, I'd never heard that before. Maybe I hadn't been listening, or if that's something that's a bit of a flip flop too.
Yeah, as far as the IVF goes, I'm not 100% sure that he's spoken on it in terms of being forceful, but I mean, the highlight he did bring up as during that question was actually pretty good when he said that the Supreme Court, whatever ruling they made in Alabama, that the state legislature immediately went behind that and, rectified the situation. And Alabama is not exactly New York or Los Angeles.
Well, and the same thing, like he said, well, that was something he said earlier in there, that all of these states wanted it to go back to the, he said, well, everybody wanted to go back to the states. That's not true. Everybody didn't want that. Republicans wanted that.
But this, sorry, Marcus, real quick, but you know what? This particular topic at this point in time should show you that it has not been codified precisely because they need you to continue to participate in their elections, and that should not be lost on the people. You understand? The Democratic Party has had at least 2 times in the past 25 years to actually put this issue to bed, make it a non-campaign issue, nothing. You know what I mean? And they purposely chose not to do it. So again, this one of those things that they will continue to use and beat us over the head to continue to participate in their bullshit elections.
I don't
Seriously.
know if they intentionally decided to not do it. I think that they just felt like the Republicans are never going to repeal this, so we don't even have to worry about this. And because Roe has been around so long, I really think they felt like we don't have to take up time and energy on this topic, because it's the Republicans are going to run and say they're going to do something, but they're never going to do anything. And I think that's just a poor calculation that they made. Perfect example, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. They could have put more pressure on her to say, hey, you need to step down, because we know more than likely if it falls to Republicans, they're going to put somebody on the Supreme Court. But I think through a lot of the hubris on the Democrat side, they just feel like they can just do things and not have to deal with the consequences of another administration to come in and change it.
I think though, just like in foreign policy where they used to have a boogeyman by name, I think it's the same thing with both immigration and abortion. It's the same thing. If you dealt with that, then we wouldn't be here in 2024 with I'm not saying a woman wouldn't be there, but she's currently a woman is the nominee. But you wouldn't have a woman nominee at this point being able to say, oh, y'all are messing with women's reproductive rights on that side, blah, 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 blah. She wouldn't be able to say that if you took care of it. Thus, a lot of the basis of her support is what? Hey, I care about women's reproductive rights. I truly feel that Trump and the Republicans are going to do something to alter that choice that I have. So therefore, I need to, even if I don't like her like that, still need to go out and cast this vote in this voting booth. And it just perpetuates the system of us continuing to think that these shits really matter.
But I think that they always find a way to pretend like this other issue or that other issue. And I hear what you're saying, Nina, 4D chess. But here's the thing. No Republican before has ever repealed Roe. And I don't think, even when Trump went in, there was no thought ever in my mind that he was going to repeal Roe. There was no thought that. I never thought that was going to be a possibility. No matter how much the Republicans screamed and cried on it, I figured that's something that they're using just for votes. And I kind of looked at it as the dog catching the car kind of thing. Like, they're never really going to do that. They're going to use it to milk it. And you're saying, yeah, it's a different climate, but these people in Washington, they don't know that it's a different climate. They've been sitting in this climate all this time. So I think that to 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 say that yes, that they're cognizant of the change, I think that that's giving them way too much credit.
Yeah, they are. They're fully cognizant of it. They plugged in everywhere. That's why they watching everything, and they even get channels like ours, which is no massive thing. Even that's how we even get plugged. They watch and listen to everything. They got their hands on the pulse, which is why they try to get ahead of
Well,
something
well,
sometimes.
people do, but not these politicians.
Yeah, but all they have to do is be told and put, once they put the legislation on there, then they go and vote for it. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah,
they're fully aware of it. And then
but
without the song and dance, you can't run ads and you can't raise money. You know what I'm saying? At least at this particular moment. Had they taken care of it, you wouldn't be able in this particular election cycle been able to raise money or to run a fear-based campaign around reproductive rights. That's all I'm saying. And the keeping that alive is very, very, it's a very effective tool for a political party and a political system that still wants to keep people ensnared within it.
well, I'm just saying that this is they've done that with many other issues. That's the reason why I'm like the fact that they were so calculated that no, we're going to intentionally not focus on it so that it can be something that we can run on later. They did this with so many other issues. I it's just hard for me to see that for 40, 50 years we had all these other things that we ran on that the Republicans are going to do, that we're gonna not do this for 40, 50 years, so one day in the future for this one particular election then we're going to focus on abortion.
It sounds about right.
I
Sounds about right. And then whenever they get in, they won't do anything about it. They'll do once it. Let's just say Kamala does win. All of a sudden, she will sound like Donald Trump again. Let's kick it to the states. And again, you mentioned it, and you mentioned it earlier. A lot of the states have initiatives on the ballot this year too, so they'll also be able to vote on it. And it may screw them up with the initiatives, right? It may be like, oh, I bet I don't even have to worry about supporting Kamala because in my state I'm able to vote for it here, and I could vote for the red side.
I think that if there's one thing that Democrats, the ones who vote for Biden and all that, there's one thing that they are going to like demand and want will be that one issue. They're going to let everything off the hook on every other area. And I think that they realize if we do fight on this one thing, we can say we did this and that's enough to run on, because you're not getting anything else. They're not going to change the policy with Israel. They're going to continue on with this Russia-Ukraine thing until it falls apart. They're not going to do anything as far as student loans. Even some of these plans which Kamala talks about, there's not going to be anything going on with that. There's not going to be it. So I look at it as if they're able to get that done, that is kind of a low bar kind of thing, which they're not going to piss off too many of their major donors either way on something like that, and don't have to really suffer too much consequences with the donor class.
Mm-hmm. And
so they can run.
And then moving even into the immigration, you keep seeing the stories regarding the migrants and immigrants that is more important than some of the crimes they're committing, although some of the crimes really are heinous and really fucked up too. Beyond that, from a money standpoint, you see the stories regarding the what do you call them? What's the word for it? Slumlords, if you will. There's a lot of people who own these buildings. They're out of code. They owe money on the building. They upside down. They probably got liens and all this other stuff like that. They putting these people in. They're able to turn a profit. I think I saw a story out of maybe it was Massachusetts. I'm not 100% sure, but it was a situation in which the woman was complaining about, maybe some noise from the new residents in the building. She made mention that they are all, of migrant descent. Then she says, or migrant, or, so they're immigrants.
Hmm.
And then she says, not too long after, she received a letter basically telling her, yo, we're not renewing your lease. And, that's going to be that. And it just seems as if on some level, as I've been saying for a minute, the problem about these people coming to the States, it's not going to die down anytime soon. And it does not matter if Donald Trump is in charge or is the president or Kamala Harris. It does not matter at all.
Well, I mean, of course, it's not going to die down. I mean, even if the numbers actually did die down, it's not going to die down because you have people who are pushing it, pushing the stories. I mean, when you're going after, like, literally, they're looking for every story that they can get that connects to migrant issues and turning every single thing into a major national story, even if it's like one complaint in some obscure town in like Boise, Idaho. Um, and I think that's because there is an agenda. There are people who really, really are making this an issue, and so they're going to take every possible story that they can. And now with X basically being a right wing platform, and a lot of right wingers being very much against immigration, you're going to get a flood of it. And so that's where a lot of it's coming from. But my issue is if there are actual legit stories, I don't think I'd have problems with all this. But I'm seeing repeatedly, like it's like 50-50. What can you trust? Because half of these stories that are going viral, we find out 3 or 4 days later that that's not exactly what happened. And
There's other caveats to the story. It's not just as this, however they put it, they leave out a lot of details and the important, guts, if you will, of the story. So they definitely do. They definitely play loose with the facts, as they like to say. And I
with it.
and I get that. You know what I'm saying? So maybe if I do see something that maybe originates in their space, I just may take the story and the information and I go, maybe a step further than they would. And then I really try to look at it and make, an informed opinion about the matter, not so much on their opinion or even how they framed it, because once you know how they're trying to frame something, you understand what it is. I try not to just deny things. I'll just take the information and go look for it. And unfortunately, the problem is on the left, or people who hate the right, they don't they don't look at the information themselves. They just hear the headline and like, oh, that's crazy. It's not happening, or it happened once, and they're blowing it up. But they don't actually delve into the issue any further because they have deemed it right wing, conservative, Trump shit, and that's it. Then you go and talk to them in real life. They're very often clueless about some shit that really does happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
And we
mean,
saw that just with COVID. COVID, perfect example of that. And I always go back to that.
yeah, my only thing is I look at my bottom line is whether it is Trump or Kamala gets in there, do I believe that there is going to be some kind of manifest change in any of this? And my answer would be no. I don't believe. I believe that Trump is using this to run on, but I do. Do I believe he is actually has any plans to actually change anything? I believe what he is going to probably do is he's going to put in some of that Palantir facial recognition software and test out some of that to be used for other stuff. Because I look at a lot of the donors for both parties benefit too much off the free labor. And like I said in that panel last week, and I still say, and I'll say this over and over and over, they could shut down illegal immigration anytime they wanted to. And it's not from when Trump said, oh, well, shut the border. That's not going to stop it, because you're still going to have people flying in. You can still have people who are taking boats in. You can still have people who fly into Canada and come in that way. You can have people coming in through tunnels. There's so many different ways. Just shutting down the border is not going to stop it. But what actually does stop it, if you really wanted to, is if you put fines on all of these corporations and said, for every worker you have who is undocumented, you will receive a $100,000 fine on each one of these. I guarantee you that shit will stop overnight. But they're not going to do that because they don't want to do that. They want the free labor, and they just want to use them as an excuse. They want to use the migrants as excuses for problems that are going on within the United States.
Yeah, that too. And again, if you run a massive private prison network within the country, that gives you a whole bunch of new bodies to have to lock up and house. So there's money to be made in many different sectors here. So you can even have people who are totally against it. However, let's just say, let's say you're a building owner, right? And you don't have any tenants. The government comes to you and says, hey, I want to put these people here. I'm going to pay you tens of thousands of dollars per month. You going to say no? Not you, Marcus, but that person, are they really going to say no when faced down with that? Damn, you're online all day. I hate these immigrants. I hate these migrants. And then the government is like, yo, kid, look, we got a big bag for you. What you want to do? You're not going to be like, oh, I'm an American patriot. No, I would never. Nah, you're going to take that bread. You're going to put them people up, and you're just not going to say anything about it. You're going to be real quiet about it. So until people really look at the business aspect of it and just really get over the emotional parts of it, all these people walked here. It's so hard for them. Or these people are criminals and they're coming to kill you. You have to look at the other aspects, the other working parts of it as well.
Yeah, I would definitely say big business is like the big elephant in the room. Nobody's talking about the big business side of it. You hear the people talking about all these other aspects of it, and they never talk about how business is involved in it, and businesses who want to hire under the table workers. Or what about inflation and cost? If all of a sudden you do get rid of all of this migrant labor, and you say, you know what, we're going to hire Americans. Well, now you're going to have to raise those wages. And when you raise those wages, now you're talking about higher housing prices. Now you're talking about higher buildings that you may rent prices. Now you're talking about some of those goods that you may be getting, some of the stuff at the grocery store, inflation going on that way. And when you put it to some people that way, they still want their Walmart cheap prices.
Yep.
And so, and I've always said, you can't have it both ways.
It's easy. See, and that's the thing. It's easy to, once you put for a certain portion of white Americans, considering that they're the majority, group in the country. Once you put a certain amount of non-white people on TV acting wild or committing crimes, it gets that portion of white America in a state of fear, and then they will open their wallets. They'll donate to a campaign. They'll look the other way the moment the Patriot Act is pushed in their face. You know what I'm saying? They'll go with all, stop and frisk. That's a great policy. So, they'll go for all of these things, which is, obviously problematic for people such as ourselves. But, that's a different, it's a conversation for a different day.
Well, I mean, it's a tried and trusted tactic that's been used for a long time. I mean, they right after slavery, when black people were getting jobs, we got to worry about these criminals and all that. Granted, they didn't have like social media and all that stuff, but that's how the rumors and the lynchings got started. And then after that, you had the early settlers who were coming in, not settlers, but early migrants that were coming in from France and Ireland, and more of them coming in from Italy and all those different countries like that in the 30s and the 40s and 50s. And they played that same game. The immigrants, the migrants. it's the same thing over and over and over. So,
and that part too. To Kelly's point,
yeah,
the people follow the resources they extract, and people follow the resources they extract. Simple as that. Because you can't come in here, take something that belongs to me that I could actually sell and produce some income for myself. You can't take that from me, and then I'm left with nothing else to do. So I'm gonna go to where the place who took it, and now I'm gonna try to work it from that angle. It's very basic, such a basic concept. But they don't want to discuss that part of it, Kelly, because then that means you have to do what? Change American foreign policy. We're not changing American foreign policy at all.
I mean, that's a good note to probably end it up on. I'm gonna put some food in my belly, and yeah, this was it's a good stream. I don't think I've ever covered one live. I normally watch them and then kind of, come back and hit my quick points. But this was cool. It worked, and we did it kind of short notice. So I'm actually surprised. How many people were actually able to get in here, and appreciate
I mean,
y'all.
every commentator all over is live right now, or was at some point. So, you know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. So we'll just catch, they'll catch it afterwards. You know what I'm saying? Everybody will go, but you can't watch everything live. You know what I'm saying? So they'll go back and watch it. They'll get a chance because, as I said, it's crowded on the internet, but it's all good.
Yeah. So yeah, we definitely appreciate it, and much love to all of y'all. And this has been the Political Matrix. Of course, I'm your Morpheus, and here with my brother, Mr. Cy Lawson. And y'all have a good one.
All right, y'all. Peace out.